So the question is, how do I achieve pro level punchy mixes even though the levels look so quiet in my mixes? And also, what's the point of using volume automation if we have plugins that can just set the levels for us? Why go through all the work and the hassle? Well, I'll be answering these questions as well as others on this episode of Frightbox Recordings Viewer Questions Answered. Let's dive into it. Michael J. Anderson, please explain why and how your levels are so low on your track. Okay, people ask me about this obsessively, and it doesn't matter where your levels are in your mix, man. It doesn't matter. -18, I mean, as long as you're not so quiet in the noise floor or you're clipping, it don't make no matter. I have like a mix pulled up here right now. Let's look at the levels in this mix. I have no idea what they are. I just know the mix is done. So the individual levels, I guess, are quiet. Like the kick is peaking at around -22. But you gotta remember, I have a kick sample blended in with a live kick. So my live kick in this mix is peaking at -10, which is a pretty hot level. I mean, you know, we still have a bunch of headroom, but it's not super quiet. And you have to remember, if the kick drum is at a proper level, you have to craft everything around your kick drum. That's sort of like your anchor. Or at least that's how I think of mixes. And by the time you combine the kick sample, which is a little low in this mix, but by the time you combine the kick sample with the live kick, that's a pretty, healthy level. I can't make my guitar super hot if that's where the kick is sitting, if that makes sense. It's all relative. I think that's the point I'm trying to make here, is everything is relative. On the internet, man, people turn this into rocket science and they tell you there's these sweet spots. It ain't true. It's that simple. And a DAW is pretty linear unless you're clipping. And even then with 32-bit float, I like to play it safe. I just make sure I don't clip and that things aren't super quiet in the noise floor, which they won't be. If your kick is hitting at around -18, -10, your mix is not gonna be quiet. And then that's it. There you go. Great question. Sick Soul. What about dynamics, like a Tool song? I'm sure you are familiar with them, of course. All the different soft and loud and even louder parts. It's not so linear. Are they triggering different compression limiters? Probably not, man. You don't have to worry about that. Let's say the loudest part of their song is the peak, right? The quieter part should be quieter. Like this song. This is not Tool, but check it out. If I play the verse. Right? Is this coming through? Very dynamic, quiet, and delicate, but when it gets to rock and roll land, and I'm not squashing the mix. The mix is not compressed to all hell. It's only got a few dB of gain reduction on the entire master bus. You don't have to do anything special for the different parts. If anything, sometimes what I'll do is to make the choruses hit harder is I'll draw an automation to make them hit harder. Actually, Addison, I think I learned that from Nathan James when we did that mastering project at the Vault. I remember Nathan James doing something like that, and that kind of planted the seed in my mind, and I started doing things like that later on, just to kind of make the choruses pop. I'm a huge fan of automation. I like breathing a lot of dynamics into the music to make it more compelling. And it's a lot of fun, but you don't have to do anything special like create different chains for different parts of the song. That's the way I approach it, so great question. My man, Daniel Ross. Played guitar for 30 years. I think you and I are at the same spot. I started when I was 10 and I'm 40, so yeah, I'm playing for 30 years as well. Started recording last year, started disliking guitar once I started recording. Any wisdom to offer? Dude, I know exactly where you're at. I went through a huge phase of this. I use Amplitude and Ableton. How should I manage my expectations? I'm gonna assume what you mean by this is like, you have a sound in your head, you could play, but you can't replicate it when you're using Ableton and Amplitude, right? The best advice I can give you is try to compartmentalize, right? Because the problem is, and I've had this happen when I've worked with one-on-one coaching clients, where like, now that we all do everything, we all produce, mix, master, record, write, we're trying to wear too many hats, it's easy to like get ahead in the process. So in other words, I have people trying to master their track before there's vocals in it and before they even fully fleshed out their song and have written their song all the way throughout the whole process. So what I recommend is still do pre-production, have a writing phase. Don't worry about guitar tone, don't worry about the way your mix sounds. Write your song so it sounds great in a very skeletal state. Then record your track, and then you make sure you edit your track. then worry about mixing and then mastering. Kind of, when you wear the different hats of production, stay in that lane and stay in that zone. That's what I recommend. So Daniel, hopefully that makes sense, because like most other people, when I first got into this, I would obsess with guitar tone. Oh my God, I couldn't get Black Album guitar tone. It's like, dude, the thing with the Black Album is they spent a year producing that record, right? And James Hetfield is the greatest rhythm guitar player of all time. So you have to keep those things in mind, and it takes time. Stick with it. If you've been playing for 30 years, I'm sure you'll do great with production. The cool thing is, because you've been a musician for so long, you have a leg up, right? You have an advantage there. It's a lot different if you're not a musician or if you're starting out and trying to record. You already know how things should be in time and be in tune. So you have that advantage to work off of. So great question. Hopefully that helps. Big Boss Meeman. I think that's what that means. Do you recommend using volume automation on vocals even after compression and using Waves Vocal Rider? I don't use Vocal Rider. I've tried it in the past and it doesn't do what I want. I'm way too much of a control freak. Here's the thing. A plugin is not gonna know what you wanna hear, if that makes sense. Because sometimes the vocals can look like they're the same level on the meter, but you might wanna bring out a certain inflection in the singer's vocal that the plugin's gonna have no idea. It's just a computer, it's just a machine. So I really prefer to do it manually. Let me give you an example. I think I have vocal automation in this mix. I almost always have vocal automation, unless it's straight like hardcore or something like that. Okay, so this verse doesn't need vocal automation. Let's take a look at the choruses. A little bit in the chorus. Oh yeah, here we go. Check out this chorus. Check this out. Man, she's got a great voice. So these vocals are already compressed, already EQ'd. And if you look in the meter, it's the same level throughout the entire track because it's so compressed. Which most modern music since the 1970s is like that. Vocals are typically pretty compressed so they can compete with the guitars. But even with that being said, I have a bunch of automation on this vocal track because I, as a listener, wanted to hear specific words and phrases more clearly that she was singing. So take a listen. So when she said me here, right? It's naturally it's a lower note. I wanted to bring it up. And then at the end of the phrase. Okay, she said, "Why you left me here." When she says me, he hits a harmonic on the guitar. That guitar, that harmonic was kind of masking her for a second. And we have to remember, vocals are infinitely more important than guitars. It sucks. I know I'm a guitar player. I hate to admit that, but the average listener does not care about guitars. They are listening to her. So she's the star of the show. So you have to make sure that she's coming through nice and clear through the mix. Even if I'm doing a death metal band, it's the same concept. Although it's something that's more brutal like death metal or screaming in general, it's a little more monotone. So you're not gonna have to worry about variations in pitch for the most part. With someone that's singing actual notes, you want to bring those notes out. You want to bring certain words and phrases out, maybe like breaths that sound cool, that add emotion to the music. You want to bring that out. Or certain notes might be extra annoying that you want to bring down. If someone's belting and that frequency is just annoying you to death, you might want to automate it down. So I just do it completely by feel. The most important thing, because people ask me about this a lot, is that you do it. Right? Because the thing is, most people just want to buy a magical plugin that does it for them, but this doesn't exist. There's a reason why big time mixers get paid a lot of money to mix, is because they're doing all of this stuff and it adds so much to the music. So that's my opinion. Great question. So the truth is, so many of us face the same challenges in our home studios. And if you're one of the very many people that are struggling achieving the results that you have in your head, I have good and bad news. The bad news, it's not your gear, it's your skill level. The good news is that it's easy to overcome this simply by educating yourself. Now, because of this, I'm offering you direct access right now for absolutely free to my exclusive training, 4 dead simple ways to massively improve your recordings and mixes. In this training, you'll learn my #1 technique for prepping heavy guitar tracks that virtually mix themselves. You'll also learn how to create instantaneous clarity within your mix using any old stock EQ plugin. You'll get to learn exactly how to take control over the levels in your mix so that instruments stop fighting with one another. And then finally, how to craft radio-ready vocal mixes using only stock plugins. Now, a word of warning. If you're one of these people that's constantly scrolling through TikTok and you have the attention span of a squirrel, don't bother watching the training. It's extremely in-depth and almost an hour long, and it's meant for people like me who are serious about audio production. So if you are serious about audio production and you want to learn more, there's a link below to the training. Watch it now for free. And until next time, drink that Spindrift.